Two Spider-Men, one city, and a darkness that could tear them apart. Peter Parker and Miles Morales faced their greatest challenge yet. Kraven the Hunter's ruthless hunt and the rise of the monstrous Venom. As the symbiote spreads, alliances are tested, and the line between hero and villain begins to blur. Will they conquer the darkness? This is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Let's dive in. 2 years ago, Harry Osborn stood in front of a large vat. Inside, a dark, shifting substance, the Venom symbiote, swirled menacingly. His father, Norman Osborn, stood beside him, speaking with calm reassurance. "This will be good for you, Harry," he said. Moments later, Harry was lowered into the vat, his body bonding with the symbiote. He awoke, transformed, but trapped, as the vat was sealed and he was placed into stasis. Present day. At Brooklyn Vision's Academy, Miles Morales sat in class, visibly stressed. His mind wasn't on the lesson, it was on his college application. But his focus was broken when Peter Parker burst into the room, flustered and late. Principal Evans introduced Peter as the new physics teacher, and Peter awkwardly began introducing himself. Miles, noticing something out of place, motioned to Peter to fix his collar. His advanced suit 2.0 was peeking through. Peter quickly adjusted it and started teaching, launching into a lecture about surface tension. Just then, a strong gust of dust blew past the windows. Miles noticed it immediately and excused himself, claiming he needed the restroom. Peter continued teaching, but soon, the dust swirled into the classroom through an open window. A student quickly shut it. But moments later, Miles returned, looking panicked. He leaned toward Peter and whispered, "I need your help." Some students giggled, but Peter understood. Peter told the class to begin reading and followed Miles out of the room, muttering, "I need this job, Miles. Don't get me fired." On the rooftop, Miles pointed across the bay, where a massive sandstorm raged. The two Spider-Men suited up and headed toward the financial district, where Marco, Sandman, was on a rampage. As they swung through the city, Peter received a call from Principal Evans, furious that he'd left his class. Peter tried to make excuses, but the principal wasn't buying it. Meanwhile, Miles shared his own struggles with his college essay, and the two agreed they needed to wrap this up fast. When they arrived, the scene was chaos. Marco had transformed into a massive sand creature, his rage tearing through the financial district. Peter tried to reason with him, but Marco wasn't listening. He attacked, throwing Peter into a building. As Peter fought off sand clones and saved trapped civilians, he received another call from the principal, who threatened to fire him if he didn't return immediately. Miles, meanwhile, used his Venom power to weaken Marco, turning parts of his sand body into glowing fulgurite. But it wasn't enough. Desperate for a plan, Miles called Ganka, who directed them to a large water tank on a nearby rooftop. The two heroes led Marco there, but the battle escalated. Marco slammed through the building, separating Peter and Miles. As Miles fought off sand clones, Peter managed to destroy the water tank, drenching Marco and reducing his massive form to mud. But it wasn't over. Marco used sand from a nearby beach to reconstruct himself, larger and angrier than before. He unleashed tornadoes of sand, forcing the Spider-Men to retreat. Peter, using his suit's new wings, returned to the fight. Together, he and Miles coordinated a final attack. Miles transferred his Venom power to Peter's suit, and Peter used his spider arms to fire a powerful energy beam, shattering Marco's giant form. Defeated, Marco reverted to his human form. As he was taken into custody, he warned the two heroes, his voice heavy with despair. "You won't be okay when they come for you." His cryptic words left Peter and Miles uneasy. 6 months earlier, Kraven the Hunter stood over the lifeless body of his latest prey. Disappointed, he muttered, "Not a challenge." One of his men approached, showing him a map of New York City. It marked the locations of the city's villains. Kraven's eyes lit up with excitement. "Prepare to depart," he said. Back in current-day New York City, Peter and Miles are helping with the cleanup and rescue operations left in Marco's wake, as they notice that the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man app is down. Ganke resolves to fix it as he informs Peter of a location where citizens require help. Ganke also works with Peter to 3D print a drone to serve as a makeshift local network, allowing Peter to receive reports from citizens. Peter is immediately informed of a crime report happening nearby. Peter fights off the burglars while revealing new gadgets. The scene switches to Miles, who is instructed by Ganke to 3D print an additional drone, and Miles is immediately informed of a burglary nearby. As Miles fights off the criminals, he receives a call from Rio, reminding him to visit with his school's counselor. Miles sees a report nearby about civilians trapped in a burning building and rushes to help. After saving the civilians, they inform him about a peculiar crystal appearing. Miles investigates the crystal, but is suddenly attacked by a group of Marco's sand clones. Miles receives a call from MJ, who confirms Marco is still in custody, and she explains that Marco's mind has been shattered into pieces, and the crystals and the sand clones are meant to protect the remnants of his mind. If Miles can locate all of the crystals, he can begin to make Marco whole again. Miles defeats the sand clones and acquires the crystal, revealing a piece of Marco's memories. Miles receives a call from Peter to accept the last request in the app, saving a VP in a crashed limo surrounded by criminals. Miles opens the limo and encounters a semi-conscious Jameson, and Miles carries him to a nearby hospital. Peter joins Miles on the way, and Jameson wakes up in distress, believing he is being kidnapped by the Spider-Men. Peter and Miles arrive back at school, where Miles learns his friends earned acceptance into college, but Peter gets fired by Principal Evans. Peter receives a call from Miles, who extends his condolences for Peter getting fired. Miles gives him advice on an open photo call at the New York Bulletin. Peter recognizes that Robbie Robertson, a former colleague at the Daily Bugle, is the owner of the paper. Knowing what kind of photos Robbie would like, Peter departs to take some photos. Peter spots two civilians throwing a frisbee on top of adjacent rooftops and snaps a photo, which is immediately sent to Robbie. Robbie gracefully accepts the photo and expresses a warm welcome to Peter. As he is about to duck into a meeting, Robbie instructs Peter to send any subsequent photos capturing the essence of New York to him. After taking a few photos for Robbie, Peter remarks that his suit is full of sand from his encounter with Flint Marko, and he needs to change into a new one. Peter heads to a tall building where he keeps a duffel bag with another suit. After changing suits, Peter receives a call from MJ, who plans to meet him back at his house to deliver something for him. Peter heads home to meet her, choosing to withhold the news that he's been fired, for now. Peter Parker meets Mary Jane Watson outside Aunt May's house, where he now lives. He tells her about losing his job, and MJ shares that she might lose hers if she doesn't deliver a big story for J. Jonah Jameson. MJ brings a box of unsold books from their trip to Symkaria. Inside, surrounded by unpacked boxes, MJ heads to the back room while Peter cleans up. He finds an unpaid mortgage bill and explains that Aunt May mortgaged the house to fund FEAST, leaving him in debt. MJ offers to help, but Peter refuses. When he asks if she'll move in, MJ says she needs to stay closer to work, and Peter is rarely home because of his Spider-Man duties. In the back room, MJ discovers Aunt May's photo albums. Peter finds a picture labeled Balance, showing him as a teen next to a hole in his bedroom wall. Curious, he checks upstairs and finds the hole hidden behind a picture frame. Flashback. A young Peter, frustrated by criticism of Spider-Man, punched the wall. Aunt May heard the noise and gave him advice about finding balance in life, saying, "It's a process, not a destination." Together, they drew cartoon eyes around the hole to lighten the mood. Back in the present, MJ leaves to investigate a prisoner transfer from the raft, but screams outside. Peter rushes out to find Harry Osborn waiting. Harry, now healthy, reunites with Peter and MJ, expressing condolences for Aunt May's passing. After MJ leaves, Harry invites Peter for a bike ride. They visit Midtown High, and reminisce about an old USB project locked in Peter's old school locker. Flashback. As teens, Peter and Harry sneaked into the school to retrieve the USB. They distracted janitors and guards using web shooters and quick thinking. After recovering the USB, Norman Osborn arrived by helicopter, delivering devastating news. Harry's mother had passed away. Back in the present, Harry shows Peter a surprise in his old locker, an ID badge for the Emily May Foundation, honoring their loved ones. He invites Peter to visit the lab. Meanwhile, Kraven the Hunter arrives in New York, preparing for a prisoner transfer. Elsewhere, Miles Morales, procrastinating on his college essay, gets a call from Peter asking for help with the transfer. Miles agrees, ready for action. As his mom mentions, she started dating and wants him to meet her partner. Miles Morales heads to the raft to help Peter Parker oversee a prisoner transfer. Peter explains that Scorpion is being moved due to overcrowding after Flint Marco's arrest. To their surprise, another prisoner is added to the transfer, Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, who caused the City Hall bombing that killed Miles's father. Seeing Lee stirs Miles's emotions, but he quickly composes himself. As the ship carrying the prisoners departs, colored smoke fills the sky, signaling an attack by Kraven the Hunter and his forces. Peter and Miles leap onto the ship to fight off the Hunters, who are targeting Scorpion and Lee. The Hunters harpoon the ship, flooding it and endangering everyone aboard. While Peter deals with the harpoons, Miles ventures inside to rescue trapped guards. Miles encounters Scorpion, who tricks him into releasing him. Scorpion attacks Miles, infecting him with a toxin that causes haunting hallucinations. Meanwhile, the Hunters airlift Leia's container. Miles fights off the toxin's effects and attempts to stop them, discovering a new power, Chain Lightning. Peter entrusts Miles with recovering Lee, while he goes after Scorpion. Miles crashes the chopper carrying Lee's container, but Kraven sets the ship ablaze, sending it toward a crowded boardwalk. Miles saves civilians from the fiery wreck, fights off more Hunters, and confronts Lee, who escapes his container. Kraven captures Lee with a chopper, and Miles wrestles to stop him. As more civilians are endangered, Peter begs Miles to let Lee go and help save them. Miles finally releases Leia, using his powers to destroy a dangerous propeller and save the boardwalk. Although the Hunters succeed in capturing both Scorpion and Lee, Peter reassures Miles that his new powers, likely linked to Lee's energy, helped save lives. The two Spider-Men leave, determined to face whatever comes next. Miles Morales gets a call from his uncle, Aaron Davis, who accuses him of being too busy to visit family. Miles explains he was giving Aaron space after his release from prison, but Aaron says he doesn't need space and wants to reconnect. Miles agrees to meet him, though he's still focused on the faction that captured Scorpion and Martin Lee. In Harlem, Aaron assures Miles he doesn't want to fight, and the two share a warm hug. Sensing Miles is troubled, Aaron encourages him to let go of guilt over Lee's escape, warning that holding on to hatred will only hold him back. Moving forward, Aaron asks Miles to help recover leftover Prowler tech, as Aaron is retiring from being the Prowler due to his parole. Aaron slyly swipes Miles' mask and returns it, adding a Prowler code to help locate hidden stashes. Peter Parker offers to investigate a lead on the Hunters, asking Miles Morales to take a break and focus on his college essay. At Williamsburg Bridge, Peter finds no sign of the Hunters, but discovers a hidden base behind an invisible force field. After defeating the Hunters and activating a drone, Peter follows it to more hidden bases around the city. MJ helps investigate, uncovering that these bases are part of a larger network tied to mysterious property deals. In one base, Peter finds clues about Scorpion, Martin Lee, and Black Cat being targets of Kraven. He also discovers a rare flower with medicinal properties and a lab testing Scorpion's armor and hallucinogens. While exploring, Peter is attacked by robotic animals, but defeats them. He realizes Kraven isn't assembling these villains to work with them, he's hunting them. Meanwhile, Kraven confronts Scorpion and, unimpressed by his strength, kills him using his own tail. Peter grows worried about Felicia Hardy, Black Cat, being next. At Miles' apartment, his mom, Rio, interrupts him to meet her date, but Miles gets an urgent text from Peter and leaves abruptly. Rio notices his cracked laptop showing a headline about Martin Lee and starts to worry about Miles. Peter Parker tells Miles Morales that Kraven and his hunters are targeting supervillains, revealing they've already killed Scorpion. Peter asks Miles to warn Black Cat, knowing she's more likely to trust someone new. Mary Jane gives Miles a list of safe houses where Felicia might be hiding and advises him to stay focused and not trust Felicia's words. Miles checks a penthouse but finds signs of a struggle and tracks Felicia's footprints to a stash box. Using his powers, he uncovers that Felicia was attacked by hunters and is on the run. Following more clues, Miles finds a stash containing a signed photo of the Eiffel Tower and a manual for an artifact called the Wand of Watum, capable of creating magical portals. Spotting a hunter chopper, Miles follows it to a church where Felicia appears with the wand. She uses portals to evade him, while revealing she's trying to protect her partner in Paris. As hunters attack, Miles and Felicia team up to fight them off. Together, they create a portal to the Eiffel Tower. Felicia thanks Miles sincerely and escapes through the portal. Miles tries to use the wand to locate Martin Lee, but Wong appears, confiscates the artifact, and leaves a note saying he's back from Nepal with the doctor and that they owe him one. Miles Morales learns from Ganke Lee that Quentin Beck, Mysterio, has opened a new attraction, the Mysterium, at Coney Island. Suspecting Kraven might target Beck, Miles heads there, embarrassed when Ganke reveals Haley Cooper is also there. Disguised in regular clothes, Miles checks out the Mysterium, where Quentin promises an immersive experience. Inside, Miles dons a futuristic suit and becomes a DJ in an alternate dimension. However, things go wrong when the turntables explode and Miles is attacked by illusions, including Martin Lee and inner demons. Quentin panics, claiming the system is malfunctioning, while Miles realizes the illusions come from his subconscious desire to find Lee. Quentin guides Miles to use a mixer to create an exit, and Miles escapes. Apologizing for the incident, Quentin shuts down the Mysterium. Afterward, Miles and Ganke meet Peter, MJ, and Harry at Coney Island. MJ invites them to hang out, but Miles, still shaken, declines and texts Haley to apologize for missing her art booth. Peter and MJ agree to check on him later. After Miles and Ganke leave Coney Island, Peter Parker, MJ, and Harry Osborn enjoy the park to celebrate Harry's recovery and the launch of the Emily May Foundation. They play games, ride the Speed Demon roller coaster, and visit attractions like go-karts, where they meet a reformed Tombstone, now working as a mechanic. Tombstone impresses everyone by saving a civilian after a go-kart crash. Later, Peter and MJ share a romantic moment on the Ferris wheel, interrupted by hunters targeting Tombstone. Peter suits up to fight them, while MJ searches for Harry. As reinforcements arrive, rides are damaged, endangering civilians. Peter saves people while struggling to stabilize the collapsing Speed Demon roller coaster. Harry uses his newfound symbiote powers to help Peter, revealing he knows Peter is Spider-Man. The two escape to a rooftop, where Harry admits his powers made him healthy, but are hard to control. They agree to meet at the Emily May Foundation to investigate further. Peter Parker visits the Emily May Foundation, where he finds Harry Osborn practicing his symbiote powers. Harry uses his abilities to create an arm to grab a marker, but accidentally breaks a window in the process. He questions Peter about why he told MJ he was Spider-Man, but didn't tell him, and also figures out that Miles Morales is the other Spider-Man. Peter explains that a lot happened while Harry was in the tank. As Harry continues practicing, Peter suggests making coffee since it's going to be a long night. The next morning, Norman Osborn arrives to find the office in disarray, and both Peter and Harry asleep on the couches. Waking them, Norman questions what happened and asks Harry about Kurt Connors, noting he never takes a day off. Sensing the tension, Peter quietly leaves. Peter Parker decides to infiltrate a hunter base alone, reminding Miles Morales to focus on his college essay. He promises to deal with Martin Lee if necessary. While Peter begins his mission at an abandoned foundry surrounded by hunters, Harry Osborn calls to update him on Kurt Connor's disappearance. Despite Peter's warnings, Harry arrives at the base in a black suit resembling a Spider-Man military hybrid, showcasing improved control over his powers. Together, Peter and Harry take down the hunters, abandoning stealth for a full assault. During the fight, they nearly fall into molten lava, revealing the symbiote's weakness to high-frequency sounds. Reaching the main room, they find Tombstone imprisoned in a rigged cage. Harry uses his fireproof suit to infiltrate the cage through the furnace, working with Peter and Tombstone to break it open. Drawing on his past struggles, Harry finds the strength to destroy the cage, and the trio escapes as the foundry collapses. Tombstone thanks them, promising to be ready for future threats. Peter and Harry bond over their teamwork, but when they attempt a fist bump, black tendrils from Harry's suit briefly attach to Peter, forming a makeshift spider logo on Harry's suit. Harry heads back to the lab to check on Dr. Connors, while Peter marvels at Harry's powers. Later, Miles offers to help, but Peter assures him everything is under control. Miles notices Peter often says, "We'll talk later," leaving him feeling distant. Miles Morales visits his mom, Rio, who urges him to stop chasing Martin Lee. When Rio's colleague Angela calls for help with a malfunctioning security system at the Harlem Cultural Center, Miles suits up to assist. Angela explains the system failure is jeopardizing a key donor's support. At the museum, Miles discovers criminals have sabotaged the system to plan a robbery. Using his spider bot, Miles repairs the system while avoiding detection. After the repairs, Angela notices items are still missing. Miles confronts the thieves outside, but while fighting one group, the stolen goods are loaded onto 2 trucks. Miles chases one truck, recovering some musical items, but the other escapes. The donor, Darren, loses confidence and withdraws his support, leaving the cultural center in trouble. Peter Parker gets a call from Miles Morales about stolen museum items, but asks to call back as Harry Osborn informs him that Dr. Kurt Connors is missing. When Peter arrives at the Emily May Foundation, MJ calls to report that hunters have taken over Connors' house. Hiding in a hunter's van, MJ tracks them to an abandoned zoo in New Jersey, but drops her phone when the van moves. At the zoo, MJ knocks out hunters and discovers they plan to reawaken Connor's lizard genes. After stealthily taking down more hunters, she finds Connors locked in a cage. Using her wit, she retrieves the key and unlocks Connors' shackles. Kraven arrives, injecting Connors with a substance, but Peter and Harry show up in time. Connors pleads for help, finding a serum to stop his transformation. As Connors loses control to the lizard, Kraven knocks the serum from his hand and stabs Peter during a fight. Harry, enraged, battles Kraven with his symbiote powers, but Peter collapses. Suddenly, the symbiote bonds with Peter, reviving him and granting him a powerful black suit. Peter defeats the hunters, telling MJ and Harry to escape. Kraven orders Connors to be tracked as Peter, Harry, and MJ regroup. Back at the lab, Harry's illness returns without the symbiote. They realize their only hope is to find Connors, now fully transformed into the lizard, and recover the serum from Kraven to create a cure. Peter noticed strange fires burning across the city. The flames weren't random. Someone was setting them on purpose. Determined to stop the destruction, he followed the trail, searching for clues. As he swung through the streets, he found terrified civilians, trapped in burning buildings. With quick reflexes and webbed precision, he pulled them to safety, barely dodging collapsing structures. But the fires kept appearing. After narrowly escaping a dangerous encounter, Peter received urgent calls from his friend Harry and reporter MJ, urging him to return to the Emily May Foundation. Upon arrival, Peter discovered that Dr. Connors was in critical condition, and time was running out to find a cure. Determined to save Dr. Connors, Peter collaborated with Harry to develop a remedy. They worked tirelessly, utilizing advanced technology to stabilize the volatile particles needed for the cure. Peter navigated through complex machinery, realigning components and ensuring the process remained stable. As they neared completion, a group of enemies attacked the facility. threatening to derail their efforts. Peter fought valiantly, using his abilities to protect Harry and the crucial equipment. After an intense battle, he successfully neutralized the threat. With the adversaries defeated, Peter and Harry administered the cure to Dr. Connors, hoping it would reverse his condition. Their perseverance paid off, as Dr. Connors began to show signs of recovery, marking a hard-earned victory for the team. Miles Morales takes center stage. He investigates a mysterious signal in Harlem, leading him to a transmitter protected by a force field. Upon examining it, he hears a message from Kraven the Hunter. Miles then chases a Talon drone, staying within its slipstream to download crucial data while avoiding bombs it deploys. After successfully retrieving the information, Miles visits his father's grave, reflecting on his journey and the challenges ahead. Peter Parker is determined to find Dr. Connors. He heads to Connors' home in Astoria, entering through an open bedroom window. Inside, Peter discovers the house in disarray and begins searching for clues. He examines various items, including papers on a filing cabinet, test tubes by the sink, and a picture near the fridge. This picture reveals a hidden mechanism with a musical code. To solve it, Peter finds a child's piano in the living room and presses the house-shaped button, unlocking a secret passage leading to a lab. There, he watches recent CCTV recordings and uncovers more about Connor's situation. As Peter investigates further, hunters arrive outside, leading to a confrontation. After dealing with them, the perspective shifts to Miles Morales, who receives an alert about Martin Lee, setting the stage for the next part of their adventure. Peter Parker, determined to find Dr. Connors, tracked his signal to the sewers of Upper West Side. Navigating through the underground passages, he discovered a hidden Oscorp lab filled with research materials. As he examined the lab, the lizard attacked, leading to a fierce battle. Peter utilized his agility and combat skills, focusing on parrying the lizard's powerful strikes. Despite his efforts, the lizard escaped, prompting Peter to pursue him through the city. The chase culminated in another confrontation, where Peter attempted to administer an antidote. However, Kraven the Hunter intervened, escalating the conflict. After a grueling fight, Peter managed to subdue the lizard, but the encounter left him contemplating the challenges ahead. After a series of intense battles, Peter Parker, feeling the weight of his recent encounters, returns to his home in Astoria to rest. However, his respite is short-lived as a group of hunters tracks him down, threatening his safety. Mary Jane Watson, MJ, present during the intrusion, takes matters into her own hands. Utilizing her stealth and quick thinking, MJ navigates through the house, silently neutralizing the intruders to ensure their safety. Meanwhile, Peter, influenced by an alien entity, becomes increasingly aggressive, leading to a confrontation with the hunters. MJ's intervention helps Peter regain some control, highlighting the strength of their partnership amidst the chaos. Spider-Man wakes up on a rooftop, reading Mary Jane's article about his rampage. Confused and angry, he swings away. Peter visits Harry, who is taking medication for his illness. Harry asks for the suit back, but Peter refuses. Mary Jane confronts Peter about the suit changing him, but he insists it's keeping him alive. Angry, he argues with both of them, denies the article's truth, and storms out. Outside, Peter hears Norman Osborn yelling and finds him struggling to cure Harry. Norman asks about Peter's visit, and Peter assures him Harry will get better. Norman thanks him as Harry watches from outside. Peter Parker, concerned about his friend Miles Morales, learns from Miles' mother, Rio, that he has gone missing. Meanwhile, Miles awakens in a dimly lit chamber, trapped by Kraven the Hunter. Utilizing his agility and intellect, Miles navigates through a series of deadly traps and confronts Kraven's henchmen. His journey leads him to an unexpected encounter with Martin Lee, also known as Mr. Negative. In a climactic battle, Miles confronts Mr. Negative, facing not only physical challenges, but also his own inner demons. Through determination and resilience, Miles overcomes these obstacles, emerging stronger and more resolute in his role as a hero. Peter goes to Martin Lee to find Miles. Martin Lee says that Miles is at Kraven's mansion and that Miles reminds him of Peter. Peter swings to the mansion and fights the hunters. He then interrogates one, and they tell him after he threatens their life. Peter jumps in and is trapped in an unbreakable cage. Kraven believes that Spider-Man wouldn't hold back if he had motivation. He then shows beat-up Miles. Peter escapes the cage and fights Kraven. Peter is very close to strangling Kraven, but then Miles jumps in and saves him. There is a big fight, and Peter removes the symbiote. With the Venom symbiote removed and contained in an Oscorp container by Miles Morales, Peter Parker contacts Kurt Connors, who instructs him to go to Oscorp, where there is a tank that will subdue the symbiote. When asked about his feelings with the symbiote off, Peter explains he is relieved it is over, but ashamed of his behavior. Connors warns Peter to keep the symbiote contained. En route to Oscorp Tower, Peter calls MJ, apologizing for his behavior with the symbiote, and affirming that they can still save Harry Osborn, who has yet to know about the symbiote's whereabouts. When Peter arrives, he is greeted by Harry and tells him they need to destroy the symbiote. Despite Peter's explanation, Harry strikes the symbiote's container with his cane in rage, accusing Peter of refusing to save his life. Its container damaged, the symbiote breaks free and blasts Peter, sending him into a wall. Harry willingly bonds with the symbiote again, but this time around, it transforms him into Venom, a hulking monstrosity with blank, white eyes, a fanged maw with a long tongue, and a warped spider emblem. Peter and Norman Osborn are both horrified at Harry's transformation. The symbiote breaks Harry's cane and prepares to fight Peter. Norman tries to intervene, but Peter shoves him away and gets incapacitated by the symbiote. With a little choice, Norman summons Oscorp's security personnel, ordering them to remove the symbiote off of Harry. Venom rampages its way out of Oscorp, effortlessly eviscerating the security detail. Eventually, Kraven's forces arrive outside Oscorp Tower in a helicopter, drawing Venom's attention. Venom destroys the aircraft and crashes in Times Square, devastating even more hunters before Kraven himself arrives, deeming Venom as his final, greatest hunt. The two engage in a fight, Venom accusing Kraven of causing it to be separated from Peter, and Kraven demanding the symbiote to give him the ultimate death, drenched in fire and blood. Eventually, the symbiote grabs Kraven and throws him onto a billboard. Kraven thanks Venom for the ultimate hunt, before the symbiote bites his head off. Horrified at his actions under the symbiote's influence, Harry retreats to his mother's grave, asking her what he has done. The symbiote speaks to him in Emily's voice, convincing him to help heal the world and spreading its influence all over the world.
We're going to heal everyone.
Peter Parker desperately searched for his friend, Harry Osborn, consumed by the symbiote. Using Harry's work badge, he tracked him to a shipyard teeming with symbiotes. Realizing he needed a weapon, Peter teamed up with Miles Morales to create the Sonic Burst, a device that weakened the creatures. The trail led Peter to a symbiote nest in the subway, which he destroyed after a fierce battle. He then rescued Genki and Rio Morales from a symbiote-infested train. Peter Parker swung toward Harry's apartment, a growing dread in his chest. Inside, he found only a recorder, Harry's voice filled with desperation, speaking of power, of something inside him taking over. Peter's heart pounded. He needed to find MJ. Rushing home, he burst through the door. MJ stood there trembling, her back to him. When she turned, her eyes glowed, inky tendrils slithering over her arms. The symbiote had consumed her. "This isn't you," Peter whispered. MJ let out a monstrous scream. The symbiote surged, twisting her into something grotesque. Scream. She lunged, her claws tearing through the air. Peter barely dodged before being thrown through the window. He had to stop her, but he couldn't hurt her. Their battle raged across the city, a whirlwind of speed and fury. Peter used every trick he had, dodging attacks, activating car alarms, to disrupt the symbiote. But Scream only grew stronger, her tendrils shattering buildings. Then, for a split second, he saw it. MJ, buried beneath the monster, afraid. Seizing his chance, Peter struck with precision. The symbiote faltered, letting out a piercing shriek before retreating. MJ collapsed, gasping. Peter knelt beside her, relief washing over him. But he knew the truth. The symbiote was still out there. This fight was far from over. The symbiote invasion ravaged the city, trapping civilians. Spider-Man and Miles Morales teamed up to rescue them. Inside the infested building, Peter confronted a horrifying sight. A symbiote-controlled version of himself. A brutal battle ensued, testing Peter's strength and will. However, as they battle, more symbiotes overwhelm them. The symbiote forcibly reattaches to Peter, while Mr. Negative rescues Miles. Together, they decide to enter an alternate dimension to save Peter. Inside the dimension, they chase a demon through surreal landscapes, eventually reaching the raft, where they are ambushed by villains from the first game. After surviving the fight, they follow Mr. Negative to Aunt May's house, now a portal to FEAST. Crawling through the symbiote-infested corridors, they reach a gymnasium where Mr. Negative channels his power to weaken the symbiote. During the battle, Miles unlocks the Galvanize ability, helping defeat more symbiotes. With their combined efforts, they finally purge the symbiote from Peter, restoring him. Peter now wields a powerful anti-venom suit, granting him new abilities. Using his anti-venom bomb and Tempest moves, he easily defeats waves of symbiotes before facing a symbiote behemoth in a short boss fight. With his new powers, Peter ensures victory, setting the stage for the final confrontation against Venom. Peter Parker is alerted to Harry Osborn's presence at Dr. Kurt Connor's lab in Midtown. Concerned for his friend, Peter heads to the lab to investigate.
Please. Just give me back my son. We are your son.
Stop, Harry! We can help you!
Please don't.
Please. Save my boy.
Peter Parker is determined to save his friend Harry Osborn, who is under the symbiote's control. Believing that the meteorite that brought the symbiote to Earth holds the key to freeing Harry, Peter sets out to locate it. Peter first responds to a distress call in Midtown, where symbiote creatures are attacking civilians. Utilizing his anti-venom abilities, he neutralizes the threats and ensures the safety of the trapped individuals. Following this, he moves to another location near Central Park, where a bus is under siege by symbiotes. After defeating the attackers, he frees the trapped passengers. Peter then meets with Miles Morales atop a skyscraper in Times Square. Miles, donning a new suit, proposes investigating a nearby symbiote nest for clues about the meteorite's location. The perspective shifts to Miles as he approaches the infected skyscraper. He plants a sonic burst device on the nest's heart, triggering an ambush by symbiote creatures. Miles defends the device until it activates, then interacts with the heart, experiencing a vision that reveals both Haley's kidnapping and the meteorite's location. Returning to Peter's perspective, he follows Miles's lead to a bridge overtaken by symbiote matter. After clearing the area of symbiote creatures, Peter enters the subway tunnels in search of the meteorite. Navigating through the underground passages, he confronts and defeats numerous symbiote adversaries. Eventually, he reaches a large chamber where, after a final battle, he discovers the meteorite. Peter Parker and Miles Morales unite to confront the formidable threat posed by Venom. Their plan involves Peter luring Venom away, allowing Miles and Mary Jane Watson, MJ, to infiltrate the symbiote hive and retrieve a crucial meteorite. Taking control of MJ, players navigate through the symbiote-infested hive. Equipped with an upgraded stun gun, MJ disables symbiote growths and confronts enemies blocking her path. Upon securing the meteorite, she must escape the hive, facing challenges including a confrontation with a formidable symbiote behemoth. Utilizing sonic barrels and her stun gun, MJ successfully overcomes these obstacles and makes her escape. The perspective then shifts to Peter, who engages Venom in a multi-phase battle. Initially, Peter employs his anti-venom abilities to counter Venom's attacks, avoiding symbiote pools and utilizing elevated platforms for strategic advantage. As the battle intensifies, Venom summons additional symbiote minions, requiring Peter to activate sonic devices to manage the onslaught and create openings for attacks. In the subsequent phase, players control Miles, confronting a now airborne Venom. Miles must dodge projectiles, seize opportunities to hurl them back at Venom, and capitalize on moments to deliver potent attacks. The battle demands agility and strategic use of Miles' unique abilities to subdue the adversary. The final phase amalgamates elements from previous encounters, with Venom employing a combination of ground and aerial assaults. Both Spider-Men must coordinate their efforts, utilizing environmental tools like sonic barrels and their combined powers to ultimately defeat Venom. After Peter and MJ leave Norman and Harry alone, Norman makes a call.
Get the G-Serum ready. ASAP.
Meanwhile,
In this ongoing series, I will be talking with people throughout the city, exploring our new behaviors, new routines,
MJ records her new podcast, The New Normal, before joining Peter in the kitchen, where he's making pancakes for Miles, Genki, Rio, and Haley. Before eating, Peter takes MJ to the garage, revealing an EMF setup, a continuation of his and Harry's dream. A phone alert from the FNSM map interrupts the moment, and Miles appears in his suit. Peter tells him he's semi-retiring, and Miles confidently replies, "I got this." Peter offers advice if needed, and as Miles swings off, Miles welcomes Haley for dinner. Rio urges him to show her his essay, which he shyly does. In his room, Haley notices he's not wearing his suit. Rio introduces them to Albert and his daughter, Cindy.
This is Albert.
Norman visits Otto at the RAFT, demanding to know the identities of the Spider-Men.
You know
Otto
who they are.
cryptically responds,
We all have to experience loss. Even you, Norman.
What are you writing?
The final chapter.